Hello, and welcome to my Aura of Decay Lich guide. This guide will focus mainly on doing most of your damage by stacking poison and utilizing the incredible debuffs that Aura of Decay can provide. We use Flay as our main attack, not because it does damage, but because it increases the frequency that Aura of Decay applies poisons to the enemy. We're going to sprinkle in some Wandering Spirits or Hungering Souls, it depends on which one you want to do, and you'll end up with a build that's both not meta and quite capable of doing nearly all content in the game with reasonable gear and not requiring you to really buy anything crazy like red rings or super rare gear. If you saw my previous video about League starters, then you'll know I was planning on doing Poison Lich from the start anyways, and this is the final form of that build. I've put up gameplay from my League start at around the 300 corruption range, so you can get an idea of what to really expect if you were to play this build without buying all the aspirational gear off the market or having to farm on your own build for a while before getting it. If you farmed enough, though, I can easily see this build being able to speed farm around the 500 corruption range, which is really what it's intended for. It's not intended to push 2, 3, 4, 5,000 corruption. It's really more to just enjoy the game and speed farm around the 500 corruption range. And if you do want to kill Ubroth, probably get the gear on this character to kill Ubroth and swap to something else, because I really don't see this build scaling well enough to kill Ubroth just because of how much HP he really has. Unless you're really good, then maybe you can kill it. But I'm not. So, the core of this build honestly just involves holding down Flay to attack as much as possible within about a 2 to 4 second window. Technically, you can scale the frequency all the way up into a 4 second window with attacking. However, I will mainly be talking about the 2 second window because I find it very rare that you can just attack within a 4 second window completely uninterrupted. So open wounds will increase the frequency of Aura of Decay as many times as we attack within a 4 second window. Each stack falls off separately, so you do get this sort of cascading buff that has a bunch of stacks and then a medium amount of stacks and then a bunch of stacks again. So you get this sort of waveform in your buff. And we'll talk about the math and specifics later, but if you don't want to think too hard, just know that there's roughly a soft cap around the 2 to 2.5 attacks per second range for Flay. This does mean that we'll be using a dagger and an axe. We'll be dual wielding and hopefully in Lich form get as much attack speed as possible from all your items. And it'll really help smooth out how fast Aura of Decay is dealing its damage and how much poison stacks you're able to get. It's very easy to reach 1,000, so you really just want to pump up as much damage as you can and attack speed, and you'll be good to go. There's not a lot of mana management, so it should be fairly easy to do. Aura of Decay in general has a base frequency of 4 ticks per second, meaning that it will apply your poison chance a total of 4 times per second. So the tree itself can also amp that up. We do take the 110% ailment frequency nodes, so you get up to 8 applications per second before you even attack with Flay. If you do want to simulate your attack speed, just add your expected number of attacks within 2 seconds, because that's the most reasonable, to the base frequency of Aura of Decay. You can see the math on the screen. I'm calculating roughly within a 2 second window, and I won't be clickbaiting and saying stuff crazy like 500 poison stacks per second. In reality, you're going to get somewhere in the range of 10-ish applications per second, and whether and how much poison chance you have really affects how many poison stacks you get. But the difference between 800 and 1100 poison stacks isn't that much if your poison damage isn't that high. You can do a lot less damage at 1,000 stacks than 800. So we can talk about skill alternatives and the different ways you can sort of twist this build to your liking if you do like what you see on screen. If you don't like Wandering Spirits, for instance, it can be substituted for Hungering Souls, or if you don't like Poison, it can be swapped for Bleed or even Frostbite, because Aura of Decay and Flay can both be converted to Frostbite pretty easily. I prefer to stick with Poison and Wandering Spirits. Wandering Spirits provides very good on-hit damage in an otherwise dot-focused build, and always provides a significant amount of extra poison stacks onto your target. So it gives your poison stacks slightly lower damage compared to a properly maintained Hungering Soul setup, but it requires less buff management. You don't need to pay attention, and you do have a really nice, powerful button to press every so often. It also has the added benefit of doing extra damage because it will scale really well with poison and spell damage and things like that, where Aura of Decay wouldn't. Hungering Souls itself has a lot of buff management tools because you gain more damage over time as long as the target is possessed. So you do have to play with an extra buff on top of that. But as far as the other details go, you can check out my written guide. It's going to be way easier to follow than me rambling on for 20 minutes about everything that's in that guide. But if you do like this build, and feel free to check out my other guides on Last Epoch tools, or take a look at my recommended starters for Season 3 to see what other strong builds you can play out the gate that don't require any gear at all. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.